Hey everyone and welcome back. Now today I wanted to go over an overall market update of kind of where things sit within the market. We've seen potentially what seems to be some higher lows coming in, and so I want to talk a little bit about that, what that could mean, all that type of stuff. But before we get into that, I did want to apologize. I know I've been away for the past couple of days. I had a family event, and so I wasn't really able to make any videos, and I didn't really have many made prior to. So anyway, that's part of the reason that I've got I had a little bit of a gap in videos over the the past couple of days, but I'm back to it, and you should be seeing more of those coming out over this week. So anyway, now let's go ahead and dive right in. So starting out, what we can see is we've got crypto bubbles, and today everything looks actually pretty green overall. We can see that we have had a bit of a red week, but the day itself is kind of starting to rebound. We did see a little bit of a pullback, like the majority of last week was red, primarily just due to some, I would say, heightened fears of a possible wider war within the Middle East, as well as we had the dock workers that were potentially going to be striking. That has since been resolved, and the Middle East is still kind of a pending issue, but at least for right now, nothing wider has broken out, which is kind of why I think things are starting to bounce a little bit. What we can see, the big winners on the day are SUI and Tau. WIF has come back a decent bit as well. Same with Brett. And so obviously meme coins, they tend to do better and do worse than the rest of the market. And so usually when we have super green days, they're some of the most green, and then when we have super red days, they're some of the most red. So I mean, that's kind of generally how it works overall, I would say, particularly with meme coins. We are seeing that Tau and Sui, they both have actually been doing really quite well over the past several months. The further we get kind of down the road of this market kind of starting to play out, the more I am starting to think that Sui and Tau may kind of be the two major altcoin winners. Obviously last cycle that would have been probably Solana and potentially Polygon maybe were the two big ones last cycle. This cycle it does seem to be that Sui and Tau might be those two. Again, it's a little bit early in the cycle to know for sure, but that does, at least to me, seem to be a possibility. So moving on, I want to take a quick look at the crypto fear and greed index just to kind of see where we are. And maybe as we might imagine, we are kind of sitting right in the middle of neutral. We can see obviously we did dip into fear. I only think for one day actually, in the midst of this dip. We have started to kind of come back up and see some of these gains come back, as well as, more importantly, the losses stop. And so this is, I think, why we're kind of moving back into neutral. I think this is a pretty fair spot for us to be. There's not a whole lot going on here. One thing that we can see is we haven't moved a ton in either direction. And I want to take a look at this. We can see up here the 24-hour liquidations. It's sitting at $200 million, which is 256% above what we saw the prior day. And they're almost pretty much evenly split between longs and shorts, at least from what this indication is showing. And what we can see is a couple of things when we look at this chart. Obviously, we've seen the chart move up a decent bit to the upside, but if we were to look at hourly candles, and this is obviously the Bitcoin chart on the daily, if we were to look at hourly candles, we can see that it's been pretty choppy. Big moves up, big moves down, another big move up. So a lot of this, or what we've been seeing over the past day or so, is people, obviously price has been really consolidated, mainly ever since kind of the 4th of October. So I think that was going into the weekend. We could see there's not a whole lot of price action happening. And so we could see that, kind of liquidations are starting to pile up on either side, waiting for a move either way. And obviously we did break up, but then we did start to kind of retrace. There's been a lot of choppiness overall going on here. And as we've talked about before, if you're trading, particularly trading leverage, this can be a dangerous way to play because the choppiness is usually what liquidates the most people in the shortest amount of time. Going back to the overall chart, though, we can see that we have potentially put in this higher low here, and then we're starting to move up to the top of the channel again. What we will see, though, is it's going to be really difficult for us to put in a higher high at the top of this channel without actually breaking out of the channel. So I would say this is something where we're looking at the possibility. I would say potentially even strong-ish possibility that we do break out of this channel within the next maybe 2 to 3 weeks. I'd kind of always expected that it would happen after the election, but unless we really start to just kind of trade sideways for a fairly extended period of time, it does look like, at least with the momentum that we're seeing, that we could see this channel break to the upside, maybe within the next 2 or 3 weeks, which would put us about a week or two before the election. So you know, it's still a lot to be seen right here. Obviously, there is a decent bit of volatility and a decent bit of uncertainty that could move this chart in several weird and unexpected ways. So if you are going to be trading, just make sure to be very careful with that. What we can see also on the Ethereum chart is something similar. Ethereum has actually started to put in a higher low, as we can see here. They did put in a higher, or Ethereum did put in a higher low. However, we did not see a higher high. So we are kind of still in the consolidationary zone a little bit with Ethereum. You can see, you know, a trend down here and a trend up there. Obviously, you know, at some point we will see a break. I would imagine it would be to the upside just based on how kind of the rest of the crypto market is trending, though we don't actually know. We have put in a decent level of volume at this level of support here, which is good because, as I have mentioned, this is kind of like the support of kind of last chance here before we fall quite a bit further down. And so it looks like, you know, this is a pretty strong support that we've been holding overall. What we do here in the next couple of weeks, you know, maybe we come back down and retest it. Maybe we try and jump back above this resistance and turn it into support like we've seen in these levels here. I think this would be kind of the most ideal situation, but, you know, we don't know for sure. The last one I want to take a look at too is Solana. And what we can see with Solana is a couple of interesting things. So we obviously had Solana consolidating. It broke out, it came back, it retested both this trend line as well as this support here, and then we've bounced off of that, which overall looks pretty good. What we can see though overall, just from a more macro perspective, is we have been kind of trading sideways ever since we saw that run up to kind of the 200 range back in March. What we can see is we have put in a ton of support here at this like 130-ish level. Obviously, we've seen wicks lower down to like the 120 range, but this level right here is definitely a very, very strong level of support. Conversely, though, we do have a pretty strong level of resistance up in this area, kind of between the 185 to 200 range. So there is definitely, you know, we're kind of sitting in the middle of what I would consider two pretty massive liquidity zones, both to the downside and the upside. I think if we break through one of them, you know, we'll kind of see, you know, a rocket ride to the upside or potentially a free fall to the downside, depending on how that kind of looks overall. So that's kind of what I'm keeping my eye out for. Overall, everything in the crypto market is looking pretty good, I would say. Overall, you know, we did see that little bit of a scare that did pull us back on basically everything, but we are starting to see kind of a little bit of a bounce there. How long this bounce sustains itself and you know, how long we see that is kind of something that remains to be seen. But overall, if you are interested in trading some of this volatility, as I have said before, you know, usually when we're range trading, particularly something like this, like Solana, you kind of know where the tops and the bottoms are. It can make it pretty, I guess I should say, easier to do fairly well. And so if you are interested, you can check out my link to Margex in the description below. You can see, you know, I've been trading, I chart basically almost exclusively on Margex just because that's where I've been trading mainly. Although recently I have had a couple people reach out to me, WEEX being one of them. And so I've been trying out the WEEX platform as well, just to see kind of how it goes. Overall, I would say WEEX is kind of nice because it seems that they have more, like, I guess, incentives to keep you trading, which is kind of nice just because if I'm going to be trading anyway, I might as well get something for it. Where Margex doesn't seem to have as many of those types of things. Obviously, if you're a super experienced trader, maybe you're not doing things for, you know, for like the volume rewards or whatever. But kind of the way that I look at it is if I'm going to be trading anyway, I might as well get something out of it. So as you can see, I did take a short here that was actually when we started to see this pullback. Actually, let's close this. It was this pullback that I took a short here, and then obviously I just closed that out recently, and then we've seen a pretty strong bounce to the upside. So, you know, if you're interested, I do have both Margex and WEEX links in my comments below. So, you know, if you want to check either one of those out, feel free to do that. The next thing I want to check out here is the trusty exchange liquidation map. As I've mentioned basically constantly on the channel, this has done really, really well for us. And so I'm just kind of continuing to reference this until it seems to not provide a certain level of insight that we're not getting anywhere else, and also on a more reliable like basis. So what we can see here is that liquidations have actually stacked up to the bottom side, which means liquidating longs, i.e. a move down, would be the kind of the place where the most amount of liquidations would hit. We can see kind of down to a range of like 61,000-ish. Just below that, we hit about 2 billion in liquidations, and then there's not even a billion in liquidations to the upside. So, you know, maybe we see, looking at the chart, maybe a short move to the upside, maybe like 64,500 range, and then we start to pull back down to like that 61. is possible, or potentially we just continue to run up. It's hard to say for sure. If we look at the 7-day, same type of thing. We actually see 6.3 billion to the max upside and about 1.85 to the max, or I guess, sorry, 6.3 to the max downside and just over like 1.8 to the max upside. So the charts are definitely all kind of showing a similar level of confluence that we should expect to move down. However, we can see on the 30-day, it is a little bit more balanced. It definitely is still favored towards liquidating longs, which would be a move to the downside, but we can see here it's about 5.4 billion to the upside and about 8.6 to the down. One thing that we can see in particular though, and why I think we might continue to see a further move to the upside, is we can see kind of around this range of about 65, 153. There's about $2 billion that gets liquidated. And this is pretty close to where price is currently. So I could potentially see a relatively quick move to the upside. 65, 153, that's about $1,000 above where we are currently. So I could see a really quick move to the upside and then maybe a prolonged move to the downside just to kind of start to capture some of these liquidations. Again, I have no idea for certain where we're going to go, but that to me, just based on the chart that we're seeing here, looks like a possibility. And so, I'm going to be keeping my eye out for that. If there is something that does seem to be like a good trade, I probably will take it using either Margex or WEEX. Going back to this chart, actually, let's go back to the Margex Bitcoin chart, just so we can see kind of what we're looking at. When you're trading, it can be a little bit risky. And so obviously, maybe we look to see some sort of resistance here. We might even go see a little further jump, kind of maybe hitting some or topping out at some of these wicks that we're seeing. I think this would put us at that kind of 65 range. Yeah, a little bit under that 65 range. But we might kind of see a quick jump up to there and then potentially a run back down. So that's something I'm keeping my eye out on. One thing I want to zoom out and kind of look at on a longer time frame is how the market is reacting currently. And so what we can see right now that we're sitting about right here. And this is called the Bitcoin cycle repeat chart. So essentially all this is just mapping the previous cycle onto this one exactly, right? And so looking at it, what we can see here is this is where we are, and we could potentially see by December 20th, $183,000 Bitcoin, which would be pretty nice. That's like, what is that? Just under or just about a 3x from where we sit right now, which would be fantastic. So obviously, that's something that would be really good to see and would be something that would be pretty nice. However, maybe we don't move up in this dramatic of a fashion, especially if we have a later cycle. Potentially this kind of first top gets taken out and we just kind of map it up through here. And we see, we just see about $276,000 Bitcoin, potentially in January. If we do have a later cycle, potentially we don't see any of these initial peaks. We start to see the peaks back here in, September of 2025. And this is just kind of a slower run up. It's possible, it's really, really hard to say, particularly with this new cycle. We have to keep in mind that Bitcoin probably won't rise as high in terms of percentage returns as we saw last time, just because usually that's not how things work, that a lot more money would have to flow in. I do think the stage is set where we could see kind of that same level of magnitude of money flowing in. Whether it does or not, I think it's a little bit hard to say. This would put us topped out, even at this point at over $300,000 per Bitcoin. That seems high, right? I think a lot of people, what they're thinking is anywhere between $120,000 to $180,000 Bitcoin. That seems the most possible to me. I'm not saying that something like a $300,000 Bitcoin can't happen. That to me, that seems really, really high. So just something to think about. Obviously, this is what things would look like if we saw a repeat of last cycle, topping out at around $350,000 per Bitcoin. So, obviously not too bad there. I think all of us, especially if you're watching this video at this point before the bull market has really kind of kicked off, I think that's something that you'd probably be relatively excited about, as with me as well. So anyway, hopefully you found the information in this video useful. I will have several more different types and kind of my more standard videos coming out later this week. It's just since I'd taken so much time off, I figured it'd be a good idea to give a market update, and then I can get more into some of the more standard videos that I cover, as well as, another ICP and Jasmine, and, some of these more typical videos that I do, and just make sure that we're keeping up on the developments of those. I know that there are some somewhat worrying price action both with ICP and Jasmy, which we'll discuss that a little bit, in some of the videos later this week, and discuss kind of some of the implications, why that could be, what they mean, should we be worried, all that type of stuff. So anyway, if you did find any of this information interesting, please do leave me a like and a subscribe. It really does help me grow my channel, as well as push me to more people within the YouTube algorithm. Also, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, whatever, anything like that, please do feel free to drop me a comment. I do read and respond to all of my comments, or at least I try to. Maybe I miss a couple here and there, but I do try very hard to read and respond to all of them and make sure that everybody is, I'm seeing everybody's thoughts and comments and, replies and analysis and all this type of stuff on the content that I'm creating. So anyway, thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.